Good afternoon, Briots.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for coming.
So, yeah, here we are once again. Today is day 2 of looking at the Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
The first session was just a general overview. Today's session is, since the book is broken into 3 parts of 6 chapters, we're going to look at an overview of those 6 chapters.
Okay.
And down the road, we're going to do that for all 3 sections of 6 chapters. And then after that, we're going to break down most likely the 6 chapters into a little bit more detail in another 3 to 6 videos. So that people know that they can drill down deeper or as deep as they want to.
Yeah.
Okay. So where would you like to start today on the first 6 chapters?
Okay. The first 6 chapters, as we have mentioned in the overview, they deal with karma and karma yoga. And they're explaining what it is. And it's talking or appealing to people who more have an inclination to working in some way or other in order to obtain some kind of result that they desire to enjoy. And so they're called karma or karmis. Karmi is somebody who follows karma. In a traditional sense, these were people, they're all very pious kind of type of people. In today's world, those people don't really exist. In today's world, everybody's kind of more or less following a speculative path. But one thing which I only realized after a few years.
So you're gonna have to provide a little bit more detail.
Yes. Yes.
So you were talking. Did you say pious people that don't really exist today?
Yeah.
So, define that a little bit, and why do they not exist today, and what is the speculative path?
So it's not that pious people don't exist, but it's that pious activity is not so common anymore. Pious activities are more or less limited to giving in charity, and a lot of charity is not given properly either. And also people, I don't know, establishing a school or people building a hospital or something like that. That's more or less the limits of piety. But within traditional sense, that piety was not just like, let's say, a project that you did. It's like a whole life. It's your whole lifestyle. And how you wake up and what you do when you wake up and all these things, they contribute to pious mentality. And you're trying to achieve some kind of goal or other. And so generally a lot of yagyas are done, sacrifices, which involve fire a lot of the time, but they don't always include fire. And then in this way, the ritualistic ceremonies. Well, let me just backtrack a bit. You've got what's called yantra, tantra, and mantra. So mantra is the vibration of sound, and that the Vedas, the mantras that they use, it's a subtle science, and the mantras have to be pronounced in a specific way, in a specific rhythm, with a specific meter and intonations, for you to actually get the desired effect of the mantra. And these mantras, they actually interact with the subtle fabric of reality and create certain ripples which will produce a specific effect which you desire. So mantras are like that. Yantra means machines. Yantra means symbols also. So it could either be something like physical structure, or it could just be also using of glyphs that they have. Everybody knows about the Sri Yantra is a commonly known one. There's a lot of these triangles which are interpolated, and then they have the circles around with the lotus petals. There's many of these yantras and many traditions. And then you have Tantra. And Tantra is quite misconstrued in the West as oftentimes being associated with sex and working with those sexual energies. But actually that's only a tiny portion of a specific school of Tantra. Tantra actually means ritual. And even if you go into a temple and you see somebody doing arti, they're offering some items to a deity, that's also Tantra. And Tantra means you're doing some physical, some kind of ritual. Let's say, for example, pagans, and they would work with their different rituals, and they'll have their symbols and their candles. So that's Tantra. That's Tantra. So there's a specific ritual, and it also interfaces with the subtle fabric of reality, and they also usually go with mantras and yantras as well.
Okay.
So
a couple of things I want to say here. So first
okay.
of all, with the pious one, is that you said that it's kind of a way of life, is that you are looking at all of your actions through thinking about the whole, thinking about everybody, thinking about a contribution of some kind.
Yeah.
So that you're looking at everything that you do comes through, how is this affecting those around me, and what kind of effect do I actually want to have?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and
But
then with the mantra,
yeah.
mantras is it's the way I hold it is that mantras are a vibration of sound that either you do internally or externally aloud, but it's really communicating with the universe. That's the language or the frequency of what it is that you're putting out.
Yeah.
With the expectation, what you put out is what you get back.
Yes.
True?
Yeah, true.
Okay. And then the next one is Tantra in regards to that. It's ritual. It has been in current Western thinking that it is predominantly people think it's about sex, but thinking about ritual, and these rituals, all rituals, is also communicating with birds. These are designed able to communicate something that is powerful and who I am and what it is that my expression is. And once again, you're looking for the universe to respond in mind. Am I missing anything with?
I think that summarizes it up pretty well.
The last one is Tantra is in regards to the symbols. I never heard the buildings before. So, but virtually it's the same thing, is that the symbols hold a vibration, and that it's all of cause and effect. So once again, I'm attracted to certain symbols, and I'm writing them based on that.
Who knows what happened?
And,
Hey, we're back.
Did you hear that?
The bell. Ding. Oh,
On the yantra part.
yes. I kind of heard about how you were saying people that are attracted to certain symbols or rituals or like that, and I think that's a very good basic understanding. I think that type of approach also helps one to understand the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita better, because the first time when I read through the Bhagavad Gita, it sounded as if they were talking about like. Because my consciousness was kind of still very sectarian. So I'm thinking about, okay, you've got this path of karma and karma yoga, or you've got this path of bhakti and bhakti yoga, and you've got this path of ashtanga yoga, and you've got this path of jnana yoga. And then in my mind, I just kind of imagine, I guess there'll be different institutions of, karma yoga and jnana yoga and bhakti yoga and like that. But after a few years of studying it, actually what I saw was what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. It's not at all sectarian. It's actually just addressing all the different inclinations that people have who are spiritual. That's it. It's just categorizing and analyzing that of different types of people, materialists and spiritualists. They categorize them how these people think and how they approach to accomplish their goals, the approach that they take. And then the Bhagavad Gita is talking about that, and it's saying that if you want to accomplish this, this is the way that you do it. If you want to accomplish this, this is the way that you do it. Not because anybody decided it should be that, it's because that is the way it is.
Have an inclination.
Yeah.
I missed that. People have an inclination. There's something that they're attracted to at this moment in time, and that they will probably fit in. All of the Bhagavad Gita is happening. We're complex beings. All of these things are happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
And but you might have one that is your right arm. Is that this is something that I'm attracted to more now than anything else. But all of them are happening all of the time.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
But they had to be able to learn about it. You have to break it down into pieces, and that probably they started with the most common. Would be the karma yoga. There's probably more people that are doing that than the spiritual or bhakti, etc.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. Okay, so therefore, in the first 6 chapters, then they're talking about karma or work, and Krishna is explaining that what is work, how it affects one, and also how one can become free from the entanglement that arises due to work. And then later it also explains the Ashtanga Yoga process is explained, and also how to renounce the fruits of one's activities, and how one can be in a renounced position, or one can be transcendental while at the same time be transcendentally situated. And that being transcendentally situated does not necessitate cessation of physical activity. So that's also a very important point which is made. So that means you don't have to
say that in a different way. Say that again about that it doesn't negate physical activities. Say that again in simpler terms.
In order to be spiritual, you don't have to give up your physical stuff that you're doing and your engagement in obligations. Most simple things. All right. So in the second chapter, it's like a summary of the contents of the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna he mentions a couple of the lessons which then get expanded throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and the very first lesson that comes out in the Bhagavad Gita is Dahinosmin yata dehe kamaram yavanam jara tata dehantara praptir hiras tatir namuyati. And right off the bat, Krishna is establishing the eternal nature of the soul, and that the soul, this particular verse, it means that as the embodied soul moves within this body from boyhood to youth to old age, like the body is changing, similarly, the soul enters into a new body at the time of death, and that the sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So that death is just another transition. Even in science, they've discovered that every 7 years, every single cell in your body is replaced. So kind of technically that means you reincarnate in this body every 7 years. So I'm 32 years old, so this is the 6th body that I've had in this life. My cells have completely replaced themselves 7 times already, yet I'm the same person as I was when I was born. I have not become a different person. Maybe my kind of character has changed in one way or another, but the me has stayed the same. Me, the I, the observer. So that's an interesting point.
Whatever it is that you are is the same thing in a different body.
Yes. And it's the fundamental principle of spirituality that one has to understand this. And this is what distinguishes a materialist from an aspiring transcendentalist. It's just this one thing, is that the materialist, they accept the body to be the self and the mind also, whereas the spiritualist or aspiring spiritualists, at least they understand that I'm not this mind and body, and they aspire to have realization of that. So it's like, it starts with theoretical knowledge, but then you're trying to actually have a heart experience of it where you actually perceive this truth. It's not just theoretical anymore.
The Course in Miracles puts that in one sentence where they say, are you a human being with a spiritual experience, or are you a spiritual being with a human experience?
Oh, yes, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a statement I've heard many years ago, and I've always liked it. Every time I hear it, I think it's very good. It's a very clear way of putting it. So in the third chapter, Krishna is talking about karma yoga. So first he describes what is action, and what constitutes action, what constitutes inaction, and positive action, negative action. And the chapter starts where Arjuna asks Krishna, why do you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think intelligence is better than fruitive work? Because Krishna has said before that which things are better than others. I mean, to perform your things dutifully is good, but then there are better things if you actually engage your intelligence more in understanding transcendental knowledge and reality. And even better than that is to become detached, and he kind of, it escalates like that. So he's saying, so why are you telling me that I should now work, and my particular work now is to fight on this battlefield and kill people, if you think intelligence is better? So it's a good question he's asking. And so he's laid that before him. And so in this chapter, Krishna is explaining that people have different natures. And one of the arguments that Arjuna said, he said, I am rather just not going to fight. I'm going to go to the forest, I'm going to renounce all my work, I'm going to renounce my duties, and then I'm just going to live there like a saintly person, like a sage in the forest. And then Krishna's response to that is that not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So he's saying giving up action is not the answer. Just giving up everything is not going to give you that perfection that you desire. Because everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. And then Krishna continues to make the point. He says, because it's your nature to fight, by that very nature, you will be compelled to do the same. So it means you cannot avoid it. You cannot suppress that nature that you have. Even if it is a conditioned nature, like you've acquired this nature by dint of your past activities. Still, you cannot just ignore that because it's now a part of your reality, even though it's not actually part of the identity of the soul, but the soul at the moment has this momentum. So you can't just stop that. So then Krishna suggests, why not just use that for a transcendental purpose? Where you just use that and you just direct the purpose somewhere else. Don't try and direct your nature, change that. Rather just direct the purpose to which you're exerting your nature. So what you're doing is not really what is that much of importance. It is to what end are you doing that for? That is what is important. And that is determined by your consciousness. And if you're a materialist, then the consciousness is, I want to do it so that I can enjoy. I want sense gratification. I want to enjoy my mind and my senses in one way or another. And depending on the vibration that you have, you will have either a lower vibrational or a higher vibrational intention for enjoying your senses. But that you want to enjoy your senses, that's universal. And that's all illusion. As an example, it's like, let's say a criminal, they're performing some kind of very low vibrational activity because they want to enjoy money. So they're killing somebody and then they're stealing or they're raping. Whereas somebody in a kind of little bit of a higher vibration, they're in a mode of passion, they're working very hard, they're running the rat race, they're really working with this capitalist system because they want to earn money, because they want that big house in wherever, what the affluent kind of area is in your city,
yeah.
And you want to live there with a big house and a fancy car. But in the process of doing so, what is the harm that you're also causing? Other people are getting poorer and things like that, inequality. And then of a higher nature, you kind of, okay, I'm going to do work. And then the highest kind of level that you can do is philanthropy, where you just start doing charity work and things like that. But even that, if it doesn't have a spiritual understanding and a pursuit, it's also actually selfish because you're doing that so that you can feel good about yourself. You're doing that so you can be happy. So although it's much better than the others, it's still actually material and it's still actually just directed to your mind and your senses. So Krishna's making
it's still about you. It's still about you and your false ego.
Exactly.
Creating evidence that you're worthy. So I just want to ask a question, that I've struggled with this a few times myself, because it's really paradoxical in the part. Now, I'm going to give you my take on this, and I want you to critique it, add to it, whatever's missing. So in regards to Arjuna wanting to go and live in the forest and just live a spiritual life and renounce everything. And that as opposed to the most horrible thing that you can think about is war, and also war with your family, people that you love on both sides of the line, which is probably the worst thing that you could think of. So the way that I held that is that you not only am I a soul, and that's the thing that I am, and it's infinite and eternal, I also have a standing in this world. I have a identity that I have position that I have, and I'm in that position because it's kind of, for lack of a better word, my destiny or my fate, and that being able to accept your fate and your destiny and then still apply your transformational process and understanding to your fate of whatever it is, accepting, like in Carlos Castaneda, the stories of Don Juan is that accepting your fate is one of them, is that this is where you are, this is what's going on, and that you actually have to deal with that directly. Is there anything, it's paradoxical, because it's the worst case scenario, war with family. So is that a fairly good understanding, or would you like to add something to it?
No, I think that's fairly good. It is in many times in what I've read in Puranas, in different historical accounts, where something bad has happened, and then you oftentimes you see that somebody comments, it must be the will of providence. And then I've always found that very interesting, because I was thinking, how can they say that? Like, if something bad has happened, how can they say that this is the will of providence? And, and how do you know that it's not just because you messed up? And I was thinking about that. And then when I was just looking at the characters of these personalities, what I came to my conclusion was, because those people followed their duties properly, and they did the best to execute their duties properly, and despite doing that, things turned out badly, therefore they can say without any doubt, it is the will of providence. But if you do not execute your duties properly, you cannot say that, because there's a doubt, maybe it's because I did not do what I was supposed to do. So you don't know if that's what caused the things to go bad. So in that way, if you deal with what you've been given, and you act according to your nature, and you follow your prescribed duties is not like some dictator telling you this is what you should do. It's prescribed duties according to your nature that you have, which is just, it's a natural flow of who you are, that you don't try and fight against that. And I think in a sense you can use the word acting in alignment. So you're acting in alignment of your nature, but you also have to align your intent with something transcendental. But anyway, be that as it may, even if you're not spiritually inclined, if you just perform your dharma properly, then you will attain some positive result in the long run, even though temporarily things might seem to go bad. So in that way, you can then say, well, I did what I was supposed to do. If it has turned out like this, it means this is how it was supposed to turn out. And then you can be happy knowing I did what I needed to do. And it's much easier then for you to actually deal with the situation. But if you made big mistakes and you messed up because you did something that you shouldn't have done, then it's harder to actually deal with it, because now you're sitting with this thing in your head that this is my fault. And then you have to deal with that now also, while also accepting what you've done.
The guiding principles that I use for that is, doing your best. Is actually you do your absolutely your best as it shows up for you right now. Mm-hmm. And if after the fact I realize that I've made a mistake in thinking of some kind and a mistake in action, then all you can do is learn from it. I mean, I did the best that I could with the knowledge that I had and where I was. So all you can do is forgive yourself because you didn't know. Because if you didn't do your best, that's a different thing. If I did my best and it turned out to be the wrong thing, then I've really learned what I was supposed to learn. So, and if I didn't do my best, then that's what I was supposed to learn. So all of it is actually, there's a perfection in it, and none of it is about, judging yourself about anything that you did is really a useless use of energy. Okay.
So then Krishna further continues to say, that's really well stated, by the way, I should say thank you. And he's talking about how ignorant people, they're very attached to the result of their work. And this is more or less their meditation all the time. And that more intelligent people should not disturb these people by trying to make them to stop working. So he's kind of giving instruction, don't disrupt, don't disturb people, but at least you should understand what is going on. And then Krishna continues to say that there are proper ways of doing things. For example, there is a proper way of begetting children. There's a certain process that one can follow, a scientific process. It's known as the Garbhodana Samskar, just for interest's sake, which is the science of conception. And it's literally, when I was studying genetics, they were talking about, this was now in 2010, they were talking about, they want to make it that you can go to the gene clinic or whatever, And then you can say, I want a child with these traits. I want white hair, blue eyes, he must be handsome, this. And then they can actually genetically modify a sperm sample and impregnate it into the womb and something like that.
Yes.
We're talking of this stuff, obviously they haven't attained that yet, but this science already exists, and it's called the Garbhadana Samskar. And basically it is, you conceive at a certain time, depending on the menses, of the woman, under certain astrological influences, during certain times of the year, and certain times of the day that you avoid doing it, and other times. And then you can have a child that you can custom make like that. And if you do it properly, you're going to get something very similar, or if not exact, to that. Obviously, there's also other forces out there which also govern like our destiny. But these are certain things that we can do. So that's the proper way of doing it. Instead of doing it like animals, we're just on impulse, we're just mating, and then sometimes just by the result, even without intention, a child is born. Then you're just getting a child, which is just a random throw of the dice. I mean, all of us, it's like all of us, like that. So anyway, so the point is, there are proper ways of doing things, and Krishna says, if one follows those proper ways, which these ways are recorded in the Vedas, which again, it's not a religious, autocratic kind of thing where this is this and, very strict. It's just actually just like giving you a reflection of reality. That's what it is. And if one follows these things, one can actually feel, okay, I'm in alignment here. And you'll always be in alignment. You won't have these steps where you kind of, your eyes are closed and you've got this little path in front of you, and then either side there's like mud. And you can't see anything, and you're kind of walking, and then as long as you're feeling the path, you know that, okay, I'm in alignment, and then you step on mud, and you're like, okay, no, I'm not in alignment now, and you have to fumble around a little bit, and okay, I'm on the path now I'm in alignment. So you're responding to this feeling, but you're still very much kind of just moment to moment fumbling around. So at least that's something. But if you follow something like the Vedas, there's no fumbling around. You've got like a torch, and you shine it on the path, and you never stray off the path. And you're also going to feel that you're in alignment the whole time. And that is also another proof of the authenticity of the Vedas and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, that one who follows these things, they can actually validate them for themselves, within themselves. Not because somebody has told you this is the truth, but because you've experienced it yourself. And in that way, it's science. That's why they're saying this is science, the science of self-realization. Because you can see and experience it for yourself. Science is all about experience and validating through experience. You're seeing with your eyes, you are smelling with your nose, particularly the eyes, science happens to. So you're experiencing. So same with spirituality, you can validate these things by applying the processes, and then you can validate it for yourself, and you can draw your own conclusions like that. And which is one thing that really attracted me to this, is because I was studying science, and this appealed to me a lot.
Yes. I think that's a really good definition for all transformation, regardless of your path, is that it's aligning with self, and you know when you are and you know when you're not. And being able to, and really the idea is to, if you start discovering an aligned path, and it really becomes, there's a sacredness that actually arises, and that you can experience, and that why would you ever move from there? All the masters talk about being able to connect with a really deep alignment, and a sacredness is discovered, and that then they decided that they wanted to live there their entire life. In the Buddhist sense, when they talk about chopping wood and carrying water, it's about having that be the most profound experience, because it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be aligned with all of them, and it can be in a very deep and meaningful way. And something as mundane as carrying water and chopping wood.
Yeah, exactly. All these things can become spiritualized. It's a matter of
into every moment. Absolutely.
That's the meaning. That's the meaning of yoga. Yoga means to relink. It means to relink to source, and that everything you're doing with that connection. That's what yoga means. Actually, the Latin word of religion, or the Latin derivative of religion, comes from the word relego, which means to relink. So originally, religion is actually the English word for yoga. Interesting enough.
What is the English word for yoga?
Religion.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also the Greek roots of logos is truth.
All right.
So
There we go.
using your words, it's to re-truth. That works for me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So that kind of gives a bit more of perspective of what real religion is. And it makes it very easy then to distinguish the false religion which is happening en masse on the world today. And oftentimes people say, oh, this is religion, no, bye-bye. But actually they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They've not understood that these are all pretenders.
I have very little patience for what man has done with religion. So no wonder people have an issue with it.
Yeah, it's such
okay.
Okay, so continuing. So then in the 4th chapter, Krishna starts speaking about himself a little bit. He says that, he himself, he does not have any duties to perform. There's nothing he has to do and nothing he does not have to do. He's completely free from any influence of the material world, and he's always situated like that. And in that way, nobody can actually understand or estimate what it is he's thinking, what it is he's doing, or even who he is. And which is also in a nice way distinguishing himself as being the Godhead from living entities such as you and I, where we're saying, you said very nicely that the difference between God is that he created us, but we did not create him. Or is that right? Did I quote it right? Yeah.
Yep, that's pretty close. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So he created everything, we did not create everything, we were created. And in the same way, now Krishna is now also explaining, he is not subjected to the laws of the universe such as us. Like we're subjected to the laws of gravity, for example, is a law. He is not. We're subjected to the laws of birth and death. He is not. We're subjected to laws of karma, good and bad action and reaction. He is not. So for him, everything he does, it has a purifying effect. No matter what he does, the effect is always good. That's what absolute means. But for us, it's relative. It's relative. So that means even if Krishna, if he hugs or if he kills or whatever, the result is the same. Because the way the world works is, if you want to do something, there's a particular thing you have to do to accomplish that. Like if I want to light a candle, I have to light a match and I have to light the candle up. Or if I know how to chant a mantra, I can chant the mantra and light the candle like that. But there's something I have to do to accomplish lighting this candle. So I am obliged to follow something in order to attain something. Krishna does not have to do that. If he wants the candle to go on, he just desires it and it will happen. This is just an example. Yes. This is an example, oh God. No, so there's
which brings up the notion of Yoga Nidra. So we'll talk about that again, but it's like that's a real good point to actually look at when people look at what really Yoga Nidra is. They can look that up on their own.
Yes. Okay. So then he continues in the 4th chapter. He's saying that he's talking about what is action actually now. And then he just says that I shall now explain to you action. And if you understand what action is, then you can become liberated from all misfortune. And then the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, means it's action that produces a negative or undesirable result, and what inaction is. And then I like this verse a lot. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So what he's then explaining for the rest of the chapter is going to help one understand what he means there, that one who is performing action outwardly, but internally he's renounced, that person is actually transcendently situated, not the person who stops all kind of action and he sits down, but in his heart he still dwells on sense objects and on enjoying his senses in one way or another. That means he's actually just pretending. He's just making a show. He's actually even cheating himself, thinking, I'm being very spiritual. I'm sitting here, I haven't eaten for 7 days. And then, but what are you thinking about, my dear sir? It's like
that's the easy one to understand. The harder one is when you are taking action and you are renounced.
Yeah.
What are we renouncing? Like, speak a little bit more about that.
Good. That's actually in the 5th chapter. Krishna actually talks about that. We start talking about action in God consciousness, and karma yoga, action in God consciousness, where now you're performing your actions and you're doing it as a matter of duty, but you're not thinking about the results. You're not thinking about, oh, when my kids grow up, then this and this, you're having your plans, or when I get my paycheck, this or this. Instead, you're just thinking, whatever I'm doing now, I'm going to do in a way that's going to please God. And I'm going to just dedicate my devotion to Him through this activity. Whatever comes, the result is not mine to enjoy, because I'm not working for myself, I'm working for God. And if I have success or failure, it doesn't matter, because it's not mine anyway. So why should I be so much anxiety about whether this is going to work or not? I just need to do my best. And whether it works out or not, it's irrelevant for me, because it's not for me anyway. So this is attachment, and this is discussed in that chapter.
Right. So it's less about, because what people are fixated on is what their actions, and the results of their actions are a reflection of who I am. And when I have a question and doubts of who I am, I need that kind of feedback to be able to determine who I am, and generally in comparison to everybody else. So I don't know if this is from the Bhagavad Gita, but not being concerned from the fruits of my labor.
Yes.
And that, so giving up, not the fruits of my labor, is not really being too focused on that, and maybe at all, let the chips fall where they may, and giving my actions as a gift to creation, because this is the place I have been placed. This is my destiny, this is my nature, so I'm going to do this because that's what there is to do in front of me. And then learn. I'm still learning. I'm not doing it mindlessly. I'm still learning and still thinking about what I'm doing, but I'm doing it as a gift to creation, and I'm not concerned about the fruits of my labor.
Exactly. And that obviously...
Is that out of the Bhagavad Gita? Just out of curiosity.
That's Bhagavad Gita. That's exactly also these things that's been discussed here. It's correct. And it's a lifelong pursuit to actually fine-tune that, because that sometimes a person might misconstrue that, and then they will work whimsically, not caring for the results of their action, which is also not appropriate, because that means you've still not understood that. You've actually just taken this and you're misusing it so that you can justify your laziness. So that can also happen. So internally...
Or your willy-nilliness, or that if it doesn't matter anyway, I can, just live life as art.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but then again, one can argue that such an approach is not authentic, because if you are really doing it for the benefit of your beloved God, then you would be putting everything you have into what you're doing to please them as much as possible, and expressing it.
There's purpose and there's meaning.
Exactly.
And you still are living as art, but there's purpose and meaning. I'm living as art based on what my design and nature is, and the circumstances I find myself, as opposed to that I'm just being willy-nilly living as art.
Yeah. But if I might dare to say, then the art that you're living actually has intrinsic value. It's not just postmodern art where you imagine some value. I couldn't resist. Okay, so in chapter 5, they're explaining these different methods of detachment. Like it's explaining, you're performing your duty without attachment, and you're surrendering the results under the Supreme. Or the yogis, they abandon attachment, act with body, mind, and intelligence, and only for purification. So they're following, the yoga process, the mystical Ashtanga yoga. So you apply your detachment in that way. Then also says that somebody who different types of renunciation is being mentioned here, which when we go a level down, when we come back to this, I'll kind of get into it more. And then to conclude the 6th chapter,
I missed that. What about renouncing? I missed that sentence.
Different ways in which different people attempt to renounce. Like some people renounce their intelligence. Some people renounce by the mystic yoga process, by practicing to cessate the senses or remove them from the sense objects. Other people renounce by the way that they work. They're just giving up the results of their labor. That. So different types. So, and these are all considered different, like karma yogas, because a lot of people perform yoga not for spiritual means. They want to attain some mystical power, or in the Western sense, they want to become very healthy. That's a lot of the motivation. Okay, so then the sixth chapter, they're actually talking about the Ashtanga Yoga process itself, which is how to sit down and certain postures that you have and controlling of the breath. And they say that you're offering the outgoing breath into the incoming breath. And at one point you reach an equilibrium where you completely stop breathing, and then you start pulling off the senses from the sense objects and you start directing them internally, and then you start meditating on the super soul that exists in the heart, and one can attain samadhi. And there's someone also, Arjuna, he says to Krishna, this process of yoga is nice and all, but I think it's easier to control the wind than it is to control the mind. And this, what you're prescribing for me, is too difficult to do. I cannot do that. It's too hard. Because, the mind, how are you going to control that? It's not kind of possible. So he posed this question, like on our behalf. He says that. So then Krishna gives, at the end, which I'm going to conclude this overview with this, is that, which then also sets the scene for the next 6 chapters, which we'll discuss tomorrow, which is the aspects of the devotional kind of treatise of the Bhagavad Gita. So this chapter ends by saying, of all the yogis, the one who with great faith who always abides in me thinks of me within himself and transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So he's saying that not one who is able to be very austere and control his mind and senses is the highest. He's saying the one who just dedicates every ounce of their energy while thinking of God. That person is actually the most intimately united in yoga. It is actually the word uses is says yoginam api sarvesham. Of all the yogis, and yogis doesn't just mean Ashtanga yogi. It means anybody who's trying to attain yoga, who's trying to unite with God. Of all the yogis, the person who does this, they're the most intimately united with me, because at every single moment we are connected. We are connected, and it's not dependent on doing a specific thing either, like sitting down and then for the rest of the day you forget about it. It's more intimate. Anyway, then that opens the scene for these next 6 chapters to talk about, which then, so that's the chapter talking about meditation, called Jnana Yoga, and it ends on that note. Yeah.
I just want to make a couple references to what you said. So, and that earlier on you were speaking about the meaning of yoga, and the word that I use is unity, to unite, to become oneness. And you just said to unite now you're talking about that, to be able to unite with creation, and that every single moment we are connected. That's absolutely true. Except most human beings don't look to see if you're connected and connect with all there is or oneness. But you're connected every moment. And then just being able to tap into that is the process. And then just one last other note is, you're speaking about Ashtanga. For the yoga teacher training people, is modern day Ashtanga is different. Is the modern day Ashtanga, the Mysore Ashtanga, the Ashtanga that has a set series, yoga series, postures associated with it, is 90 some years old. It is not the 5,000-year-old Ashtanga, which is different. So that you know that there's a difference. There is no set series. That the yoga in the original Ashtanga was just so that you could feel comfortable in your body, so that you could meditate without anything going on in your body that's distracting.
Yes.
So just a footnote for the yoga teacher training people.
Thanks. That's a good point. Right.
Anything else you want to contribute to all of that?
No, I think that's about it. That's a nice overview. Anything more than that, I think the listeners should come back to the follow-up classes on these sections, so we can dive in a little bit deeper.
Right. So just to reiterate, we're going to do for the next 6 chapters, we're going to do what we did today, and then we're going to drill down. We're probably going to do 2 sessions to drill down in each one of those sets of 6 chapters to really look at what the most important content is to understand and what the practices are.
Right.
Is that suits you? Sure? I'm
Yeah,
shocked.
that's fine. Seems fine.
Yeah. Wow, that was interesting.
Yeah.
So, my friend, I'll see you tomorrow. And
Very much.
how many minutes is that, by the way?
Sorry?
How many minutes was that?
We're at 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, I thought it was 32. Thank you
Yeah.
very much once again. Love and light, my
Yes,
friend.
Haribol.